When Black Panther roared into theaters, it not only delivered one of the best Marvel movies yet, it also forever changed the MCU in truly amazing ways. Not just because of its characters and plot, but also because of the game-changing technology the movie introduced. After getting our first clear look at Wakanda, one thing was certain: the rest of the world is falling behind in terms of technological advancements. Seriously, I still can't get my smartphone to connect to Wi-Fi. But now that Wakanda is open to the public, how will their technology change the world? And how will it protect them from other alien threats? Wakanda forever! Let's discuss. I still remember how shocked I was at the end of Iron Man when Nick Fury showed up in all of his eye-patchy glory and told Tony that he's become part of a bigger universe and just doesn't know it yet. I don't know what exactly I expected from that, but man oh man was Fury right. After that, the MCU basically exploded as it became filled with demigods, super soldiers, Ant-Man, and Guardians of the entire galaxy. It's incredible to look at the MCU now and compare it to what it was back in 2008 when all Tony had to worry about was a shady business partner and clunky prototypes of his beginning Iron Man suits. But over the years, things have slowly escalated. I think about Vision's speech regarding escalation from Captain America: Civil War. And not just because he's a robot wearing a very trendy sweater. While everyone's arguing over the Sokovia Accords, Vision starts spitting facts. He says in the time where Tony first announced himself to the world and made superheroes well known, superhero numbers have grown exponentially. But at the same time, potentially world-ending events have also increased at the same rate. He goes on to say strength invites challenge, and challenge invites conflict, and conflict
breeds catastrophe.
Really wise words from someone who doesn't know how to use doors correctly. But Vision is absolutely right. The world just keeps expanding and growing, which means the threats our favorite heroes are going to face are just going to keep getting stronger over time. It's going to take a serious upgrade in technology to keep up with the rising onslaught of villains, and that is where a place like Wakanda comes into play. When the secretive nation was first introduced, we were all blown away with just how technologically advanced the city was, and how effortlessly they had incorporated their enhanced technology with their deep spiritual roots. This was a location that was far and away the most advanced city we've seen on Earth so far, and it's amazing it stayed secretive for so long. Could you imagine if Black Panther was the first movie in the MCU and we got to see this genius-level society first and then watch over the years as the rest of the MCU grows around that? That would have been pretty crazy. Wakandan tech is changing the MCU forever. But looking back over the MCU's history, you wonder just how much of a difference there would be if everyone had Black Panther and Shuri on speed dial. Remember when Tony Stark was kidnapped in the first Iron Man movie? Well, we're pretty sure if a Terrence Howard-looking roadie could have called T'Challa in that movie, then they would have tracked Tony using his unique heat signature as well as his probably expensive cologne to trace air particles or something.
Are you Tony's stank?
And they'd find him in about 7 minutes. Sure, then we'd have no Iron Man though, and then how would Peter Parker feel? Probably pretty sad. If you move through the first 2 phases of the MCU, you could argue that Wakanda tech could have prevented or altered some of the biggest movies and moments in the MCU. I'm sure Wakanda tech could have beaten the Destroyer in the first Thor movie without too much hassle, and it probably could have saved Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 before the genius had to go and invent a completely new element in order to keep himself alive. Also, if Wakanda wasn't as secretive of a nation, I'm sure back in the 40s they had fancy enough equipment that could have found the frozen capsule that was Steve Rogers almost instantaneously. Yeah, Wakanda is advanced, and although we can't change the past and how active they are in the world events, things are going to be drastically different going forward. It's an incredibly exciting time to be an MCU fan. Not only are we all still hyped after the epic conclusion to Avengers Endgame, a feeling that I don't think will ever truly go away, I might add, but the excitement building from the MCU's future potential is unmeasurable. And guess what? Wakanda deserves to be front and center for this exciting new chapter. I'm gonna suggest something a little radical here, but if you hear me out, I think it makes a perfect amount of sense. Avengers Endgame saw Thanos completely annihilate Avengers headquarters, and now Earth's mightiest heroes are struggling to find some place to live. I don't think they could afford a 2-bedroom apartment in New York, so where else are they going to go? Well, why not Wakanda? The country's obviously big enough and has ample space to build a new Avengers compound, and also happens to sit right next to the largest stockpile of Vibranium in the entire world.
I just pay for everything and design everything, and
Make everyone look cooler.
Without Tony Stark around anymore to design cool new suits and technology for the Avengers team, technology that's used for one movie and then never brought up again, yeah, I'm still upset about Captain America's magnet shield in Age of Ultron because that was an amazing upgrade that Cap stopped using after the film. Anyways, as I was saying, without Tony Stark around, the Avengers are going to need a new tech-savvy person to make sure the Avengers are completely up to date on all the coolest weapons and technology. And that is where Shuri should come into play. The young tech genius has been touted as being smarter than Tony and Bruce Banner, a fact which was made clear in Infinity War. So if you need somebody who can make fancy new gadgets, it definitely should be Shuri. But Shuri will be busy being the chief science officer of Wakanda, so it's not like she can make a bunch of trips to the United States every time Ant-Man's suit malfunctions and gives him 6 heads or something. No, Shuri needs to stay in Wakanda, and the Avengers need to be close by, meaning the Avengers compound should be closer to the mighty nation. It makes perfect sense for a bunch of other reasons too. Thanks to the Sokovia Accords, the United States weren't a huge fan of a lot of those Avengers. So maybe their headquarters should be in a country that appreciates them a little bit more. And as I previously mentioned, Wakanda has a humongous pile of Vibranium, which is a metal that could be used to give the Avengers a huge advantage against their enemies. So by using the Vibranium to make better suits and upgrades, the Avengers team will become even stronger. And by being close to Wakanda, it really solidifies their status as not just Earth's mightiest heroes, but the entire universe's mightiest heroes. Because as we've seen, Wakanda is an incredible place, and their technology has the chance to really change the entire world. In Wakanda's appearances so far, we've seen incredible things, like a secretive force field that cloaks the city from enemies, as well as a strong barricade that stops alien blasts from getting through. We've seen a hyper-advanced remote control vehicle technology that allows its user to hijack any vehicle in the world instantaneously, and we've seen their tribal warriors equipped with powerful defense weapons among many other amazing things. And if you remember, Black Panther wanted to share all their resources with the rest of the world. Something that was put on hold probably after T'Challa and Shuri turned to dust and then vanished for 5 years. But now that everything's back to normal, the powerful brother-sister duo can continue their mission to upgrade the entire world. Can you imagine how much the world would change if they were generous enough to share their designs and technology with the rest of the planet? I would imagine in a few years even Thanos would have trouble invading again.
Wakanda
is closed today.
But that brings us to an interesting point. Thanos was the strongest threat Earth has faced so far, but going back to what sweater-wearing Vision said, strength invites challenge, and challenge invites conflict. Now that Earth is on the global stage as being the planet that brought back the entire universe, we'll probably see more alien threats take notice in the future. The upcoming Eternals movie will open up even more of the cosmos section of the MCU and probably bring more Celestials into play. Then of course we all know the Fantastic Four and X-Men are coming, which opens the door to terrifying space threats like Galactus, Annihilus, the Beyonder, and etc. Earth has really opened itself up to new experiences, but thanks to the tech coming out of Wakanda, I think Earth is going to be able to become a major player in galactic proceedings going forward. Remember in Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel, space travel to different planets was totally the norm, and nobody batted an eye. I think even though Earth has now been attacked by 2 major threats from the stars with Loki and Thanos, I don't think the citizens would be ready for weekly trips from Earth to the moons of Saturn or anything like that. That sort of thing takes time, but thanks to Wakanda's technology, that's the steps Earth will be making in the near future. And I think even though we've seen some amazing Wakandan tech so far, we've only just scratched the surface to what the nation is truly capable of. Before, Shuri and her development team were only focused on making things that were specifically for Wakanda. This meant things like Black Panther's suit being completely held within T'Challa's necklace and able to unleash devastating kinetic energy attacks, or the practically impenetrable force field that stops outside threats. All these things helped Wakanda, but what do you think Shuri's going to do now that she's back and an alien threat destroyed half the galaxy? It would make sense for Shuri to pick up where Tony left off and create a proper global defense system. Sure, when Tony had this idea, he was dumb enough to try to go with artificial intelligence and, well, that turned out poorly for Quicksilver and a bunch of other civilians, but Shuri is smarter than that. She seems up to date on a lot of pop culture, so she would know any artificial intelligence would just immediately turn evil and destroy everything. I imagine her system would be a lot like the force field around Wakanda, only this one would work more in detecting and defending against enemy threats. At this point, we know Nick Fury is working on something like this. By all accounts, it looks like he's starting up SWORD, which is the space equivalent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm sure he's doing this to protect the Earth. But if he was smart, he'd work with Shuri and Wakanda's massive Vibranium stash to give Earth the best protection available. Of course, we need to take all of this with a big ol' grain of salt. For the last time, I'm gonna mention Vision's quote about escalation and just say that Wakanda needs to be careful. Now that it's in a position to forever change the MCU with its amazing technology, they need to be wary. Other nations and enemies might feel threatened by this and try to take what Wakanda has to offer. And although this would be an awesome way for the MCU to introduce Namor and Atlantis or Doctor Doom and Latveria, it could also spell trouble for Wakanda and all the characters we've come to love. So be careful, Wakanda! Although you're in the position to become the most powerful country in the world, it might bring a series of negative consequences. But I guess as long as you have T'Challa and Shuri, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Wakanda forever!
What's your favorite piece of tech that we've seen from Wakanda? And what other mind-boggling inventions will we see in the future? Let us know your thoughts on Wakanda's impact on the world in the comments section down below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more awesome MCU content. As always, thanks a lot for watching.